We are the Meandering Wrights. In the fall of 2019, we sold everything to give life a shot as a digital nomad family. We look forward to learning from new cultures, trying new things, and hopefully inspire others to take a chance and see the world.
Hi, good morning from Sweden. The last hour in our little hometown, Fjugesta. We're leaving in about an hour. JF is driving around with the van and drop things off. And we're packed. Kids are playing in the hall. I'm exhausted. Tomorrow morning, we will head out to the airport. That will take us down to Lisbon, Portugal.
So we want to give a cut. So I'm going to try if I can cut again. I'm going to try something new. So I'm in a co-working space in Ericeira, Portugal, and I've cut the video and what I think, how I think I want to do it. However, I'm still learning about the whole voice-over thing and having my cell phone screen and not. So I figured I'm going to have the video here, and I'm going to watch it and tell you what's going on, and then I'll put that voice in there and we'll cut back and forth. So we'll give that a try. So the last couple of hours of hanging out in Fjugesta, a little town about 2 hours inland in Sweden from Stockholm, we actually had really nice weather. The girls were hanging out outside. It looked like springtime even though it was in the beginning of January. There's supposed to be a whole lot more snow, which kind of bummed the girls out a little bit. But we did get, I guess we call it snow. We had snow for a couple of hours. We spent some time with some friends. We spent time with people who we've gotten to know during the years we've lived in that little town. So we sold our car as well. And the good news is the buyer of the car was okay with picking it up in Stockholm. Excuse me. So it was actually really good that we had this to drive from the house that we were staying at to Stockholm to my parents. It gave us a chance to go all the way to the airport with this large car. I'm not sure how we would have solved that otherwise. Interestingly though, we got all the bags packed. We have 5 really big suitcases. Then we have 5 carry-on suitcases. And then some other random stuff that was going to my parents' place. So I packed the car, it was full. And then I remembered that we do have to have the summer tires with us because the buyer of the car is going to want the summer tires as well. So I had to make a stop at the local lumber yard and picked up two 2x4s, stuck it on the roof of the car, and then I could carry the summer tires on the top of the car. It didn't look great, but it worked really well. The car was completely full, so that was really our only solution. While traveling, the kids actually do really well in airplanes. All three girls, they usually look forward to flying the longer flights, like when we fly over the Atlantic to the US from Europe, because that's the only time there's no restrictions on screen time, so they're all allowed to watch it whatever they want and however long they want on the screens, on the personal screens in the airplane. They keep forgetting, though, that in smaller airplanes just cruising around Europe, usually there are no screens, so they're always a little bummed to find out that they can't watch movies. The good news is it's just 2 hours flight, so usually they forget about that and they eat something, and then we can hang out and they make it all the way. We make sure to actually get the kids to run around during any layovers, any stops that we have. So even though we could, I guess, be picking kids up and carrying them around, or have a really big stroller to drive them around in the airports, we on purpose we do not. Mainly because when we do land after a couple of hours flight, it's really great if the girls can really run around, I guess, and so they get to walk on their own and jog around the airport. Usually, if it's been a long flight or something, they're tired, so it takes a couple of minutes of whining until they get their blood pumping and they can start running around the airport. In Brussels, it actually worked out really well. It was midday. They were hungry, but they were champs. They made it into the airport from the airplane. And we found a little a cafe that we could try some new. We found a cafe in Brussels Airport where we could try some new sweets, some new pastries. Is what they're called. The sweets actually have a word for it, FIKA. I'll put a link down below to an interesting video about what FIKA is. It's really just a coffee break, but they have their own little culture around it in Sweden. After Brussels, we took off again towards Lisbon. It's a little bit longer. It's almost 3 hours, I think. And by now the girls are kind of tired. Annabelle usually falls asleep in different random places. In this case, she actually fell asleep across Erica's leg, face planted in the seat, in her own seat aboard the aircraft. Claire has a tendency to try to stay awake as long as possible. She'll be awake for the longest time, and then pretty much when it's time to land, she'll pass out on whoever she's sitting next to. In this case, it was me. So last 10 minutes of the flight, she was down. So I woke her up when it was time to deboard or exit the plane, and she's always confused and goes, "What? We're down?" Or "What? Aren't we flying anymore? How long is it left?" and so on. She's done that a couple of times. It's pretty funny. Brussels Airlines had the Smurfs on the outside of the airplane, and news to me. I'm assuming the Smurfs is a Belgian concept, I guess. I've never known that. I'm gonna have to Google that and see that. How the girls thought it was great fun to have be able to fly in the Smurf plane, so they liked that. They thought that was great fun. Once at Lisbon airport, we had been in contact with a couple of different places to rent from, and we had spent some time finding places to rent. And one of the people we had talked to, we actually did not wind up renting from her. Her husband is a surf instructor, has a van, and does some shuttle service as well from Lisbon into Ereceira. So he picked us up at the airport, which is great. We needed somebody with a big car so we could get everybody on board and all of our stuff. And he drove us to Ereceira. So on our drive from the airport, Joao picked us up and in a large van, and he took the freeway, which actually showed us also how the toll system works, so we could figure that out when we later might rent a car. But he also did take us to a couple of really cool lookout points and parks. So the girls got a quick taste on what the ocean might look like. And we saw a couple of really neat beaches that we'll check out during our stay. We had seen some pictures of Ereceira and kind of how we thought it might look. It does have like an old town charm to the center of it, and then there are some newer buildings and I guess like vacation rental houses, they really look like it, that are spread around the actual downtown city. But as we approached our apartment, Joao took the long road in, showed us some cool places, showed us some really neat restaurants, and drove straight through the little town, which turns out to be a really neat, cozy, well, just like it is, a South European, very tight, small city. And we were amazed at the cool things that we saw, like the sides of the houses have like mosaic tiles, like somebody tiled an entire facade of a house, which is really cool. We don't have that in Northern Europe, at least. So that was kind of neat. They're really small streets. Interesting to see the locals. They know which streets go which ways and which ones are one-way streets, so they make sure not to run into each other. As the new person in town, of course, it's interesting to sit in the car, not really knowing, or actually, we know that two cars don't fit, and hopefully they figure it out as we, if they need to pass. after a long journey, the kids were exhausted. The smallest one had actually just smallest one had slept on board the aircraft, so she was fine. Claire had slept a little bit, so she was okay. Estelle hadn't slept anything during the day, so actually when we got into the apartment, we told everybody to get ready and we'll just go out and take a walk and look around. Before we had a chance to actually leave, Estelle had gotten her shoes on and she fell asleep on the couch, so she got a 2-minute power nap there. Something we quickly realized is that the Portuguese build their houses during the summer, and just like the Swedes forget about summer, the Portuguese forget about winter. So the houses and apartments might not be super well insulated, and the heating systems are, well, compared to Nordic countries, they are kind of rudimentary, so they're not the most efficient. So the apartment was pretty cold when we got there. We actually had to bundle up to get inside, and we turned on the radiators and tried to heat up the apartment as best we could. Estelle, she fell asleep next to a radiator to keep herself warm. It took a couple of days to get the apartment up to a temperature that we were used to. We do realize, though, that the locals actually are used to much colder inside than what the Nordic Vikings are, and I guess it should be the opposite. So it's kind of interesting. They were looking at us thinking, why are the Scandinavians freezing? They should be used to this. So our first walk after we had arrived in Ereceira, we went down to the ocean, checked that out. Girls really love standing and watching the waves. So I took the girls down to the water where the waves don't really reach the beach, because that's where the fishermen bring in their boats. So kind of like a seaport, I guess. So we got to play in it. We got to see how cold the water is. I don't think they're going to be going swimming anytime right now, but they do love playing in the sands. This will be fun as well. So Ereceira has lots of hills, pretty steep, and meets the ocean with cliffs. And the girls really thought that was really cool as well, to be standing on top of a cliff and looking out over the Atlantic Ocean, watching the sun set and checking out the waves. And we actually saw some surfers as well, which they thought was really cool. So we had a really good start in Ereceira. We've been here a week, and we found a store nearby our apartment, and now we're starting to figure everything out and get situated. It works really well.